Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Claret and Blue. We're joined by Super Colin Abbott, historian, Villa fanatic, veteran of knowing about everything about Aston Villa from the year dot. We've invited Colin in to chat about a few things Villa related, but while he was having a little kind of mooch around Poddymore Heath here, he stumbled upon these little posters of, we know him as Paul McGrath, but he's more commonly known as God. For obvious reasons. But Colin, you're claiming that you were the man who bestowed this I don't know, this omnipresent religious deity nickname upon the great Paul McGrath.
Not 100% sure about that.
Don't
claim,
back out of it now.
I can guarantee I was one of four, the first people to ever have God on the shirts. And I was telling Dan how it come about. Me and my brother Paul, who's passed away, we used to travel to a lot of the games with a pair of brothers called McGrath's, Scott and John McGrath, and the four of us used to go all around the country following the Villa together. And we were at a League Cup tie at the Manor Ground, and in front of us was this long-haired hippie type, and he was about our age, and every time Paul McGrath touched the ball, this lad would be like, Jesus Christ, God Almighty. And it was, honestly, it was every single time, but every time Paul touched the ball, he didn't do anything in half measures. It was like exquisite, back heels, and the lad was just perfectly in tune. But this lad, he said God and Jesus so many times. In the car on the way back to the northeast from Oxford to While Away, we were just, God Almighty, God. And it was one of the McGraths, I must admit, I can't take credit for this one, but it was one of the McGrath lads said, I'm going to get God and number 5 on the back of my shirt. And we all said, that's brilliant, we're all going to do it. So we got it was the shirt with the laces, the Umbro one, it quite a nice shirt with the 1920s replica style. And we took them through to Bishop Auckland. Peter Lorimer, the old Leeds thug, had a sports shop at Bishop Auckland. So we took these Villa shirts in, and we said we want God number 5 on the back. And I don't know if it was the woman didn't sort of recognise what a Villa shirt was or what we were asking, but she looked a bit sort of puzzled. But the four of us had these shirts, and the first games we went to, if it was an away game, we'd be walking down the street, the four of us, with God and number 5 on the back, and cars would be sort of pipping the horn, and people would be putting their thumbs up and shouting, bloody great shirts. And when we got to Villa Park, people would walk past us and slap you on the back and say, they're great. And before long, you saw more and more appearing. But without a shadow of a doubt, McGrath started it, and the four of us saw it through. But I never ever saw a shirt with God and McGrath on. When our Paul died, I asked his other half if I could have his shirt, because mine was sort of threadbare. I'd worn it so much. Whereas our Paul didn't wear his quite as much as I did. So Tracy was good enough to give me Paul's shirt after he passed away, and I wear it. I was telling Dan, I wear it once a year. I'll wear a t-shirt under it. I won't wash it. I don't want to overuse it. I want to keep it pristine. And it just happened that one day I was at Villa Park wearing it, and Paul McGrath was there, and I told Paul the story, and he signed the back of my shirt. And years later, I interviewed Paul for the Villain on the Spot piece in the programme, and I told him about it then, and he remembered me from telling him at Villa Park, a few years previous. So there you have it.
You were still living in the northeast. I can just imagine you and your mates wandering around the northeast with God on your back around the big market. They probably think you're kind of evangelists or something.
The big market. You didn't wear shirts in Newcastle. I came out to Newcastle once, having seen the Villa beat them there and almost relegate them. This was '89, I think. And I come out to Newcastle. I'd gone up on my motorbike, and as soon as I got out the ground, I got on my motorbike, it was quite nippy. I put my Villa scarf on, and I pulled up at some traffic lights on the way out of Newcastle, and this car come alongside us, and they were climbing out. And I went through these red lights, and I went through Gateshead like a scalded cat. So you don't wear Villa colours in Newcastle if you're on your own.
I thought when you said you didn't wear shirts in the big market, I thought you meant like that old stereotype of like tango man who's walking around with his topless across the town.
No.
The McGrath thing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I know. I think Liverpool nicknamed Robbie Fowler God, didn't they? I think, and he was the Antichrist to us, wasn't he, Robbie Fowler? The amount of times he scored against us, but I never really saw that nickname associated with other people before we or you guys coined it for McGrath. Well, can you think of any other fan bases who would have used it for anybody? Or?
I've never really sort of taken that much notice of other teams or other players. The only time somebody comes onto my radar is if they sign for the Villa, to be honest. You just said that question there. I think the only player that would deserve that moniker from another side other than Aston Villa would possibly be Matt Le Tissier. Because if I was a Southampton fan...
Did they call him Le God or something?
I don't know, but he stayed there. He had the chance to move and he didn't. And he was as good a footballer as anybody in the country, Matt Le Tissier.
With the McGrath thing, though, it kind of really stuck, didn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, I reckon the real reason was you could get away with putting 3 letters on your shirt rather than 7. And you're a tight git. I think.
No, I'm not really that tight.
But the thing with McGrath, obviously, even the chants as well, the kind of come by R and that kind of thing. He had almost got this. Listen, he's a human being and he's a brilliant footballer and a genius of a man. But it just fitted, didn't it? It was did. just perfect.
It did. I said to Dan before you came in, I said, in all my time following the Villa, as far as I'm concerned, until Martinez, I've always said that we've only ever had one genuine world-class player at the Villa, and that was Paul McGrath. And when I say world-class, I mean he could have walked into any club side in the world in his pomp. When he was at Aston Villa, any club side in the world would have fit him into their team. You know, all the mighty tides in Italy, they build their teams on defence, and he would have brazed it in them teams. He was that brilliant. And the only other 2 players that come close were David Platt and Gordon Cowans. That's my opinion. And now obviously we've got Martinez, and you can't say he's not world class. The man's he's just an artist.
Yeah, just in terms of McGrath as well. I mean, I like the fact that you've almost kind of completed it in a way by not only having that shirt, that kind of original shirt that got sentimental, emotional reasons from a family point of view, but getting the big man to come along and do it. And I was such a humble, gracious, lovely fella as well.
And I was able to tell him the story. And like I say, when I did a piece on him in the Villain on the Spot in the programme, to get to talk to him and to tell him again, to remind him, and he remembered from meeting us at Villa Park years previous. That's pretty special, because he must come into touch and contact with thousands of fans. So the fact that he remembers you, a lot of people say I'm not forgettable. Like,
oh bloody hell, here's Colin again.
Exactly.
It's funny, and just one final thing from me on McGrath. Paul McGrath made it. I think that's probably a bit of an exaggeration for the career I've had, but I got to ghostwrite McGrath's column for the Mail, and I had to phone him every kind of Monday morning. Sometimes you wouldn't get hold of him,
yeah.
But when you did, he was brilliant. You know, really, really eloquent. I mean, sometimes you want your columnist to be outspoken, but I think with McGrath, he was such a kind of lovely bloke. He didn't want to throw anybody under the bus, but that was a real privilege. And I think I've only met him once. I met him briefly at an event. I can't remember where it was. It might have been Sutton Way a long time ago, and him and Big Ron were speaking. So I've got a photo with myself. I'd still got hair back then. This is how long ago it is. Photo of myself in the middle of McGrath and Big Ron, and you know, brilliant. That's a special.
But he's a very humble guy, isn't he? Considering what he achieved in the game, he's not. You know, there's nothing big-headed about him at all. Yeah. Fantastic player.
So there we have it, the story of how God got his nickname. It's our version anyway, and I've not heard a different one or a better one. So if you think that you were the originator of it, then come along to Poddymore Heath and you can have a dust up with Colin here. But I'm going with Colin's story because he tends to be bang on when it comes to Aston Villa history. But that's a little mini episode of Claret and Blue. Until next time, up the Villa.